Welcome back, everyone. I'm wearing the same shirt that I was wearing in the prologue to the last video. This is the interesting one. This is where I get to talk about some of my favorite games of all time, and I get to make Jarrell cry.
I just want to state that this is an opinionated video. Sometimes Grant's opinion can be wrong.
You're my friend. You're not allowed to say that.
I'm sorry, Grant.
Okay, so classic mode of being, which is explaining why both of these games, all of these games, are on in the core collection. Core collection being my favorite games that I'm willing to recommend to basically anyone that I want to hold physical copies of, so that way I can give it to anyone, so that way they can play it, if it's accessible. And then I decide after that. So Portal 2, why is it in the core collection? It is one of the finest puzzle games of all time. It is so inventive. Like the phrase "you're thinking with portals now" is so true because it's like Tetris. Like whenever you play Tetris for a while, you start to see the blocks in your dreams, like the movie says. But when you're thinking with portals, you're just like all of a sudden you're like going over here to go over there to connect with this, to go on a jumping puzzle with this, to do this and this. It's so much fun. And it's a game that is like 13 years old and it still stands the test of time in 2025 today. I'm playing through the co-op mode of this with my friend Jarrell. Say hello, Jarrell.
Hello, everyone. It's a great time.
It is a great time for the first time in 2025, and it still feels like a brand new game that comes out. It doesn't feel dated in any way. I love the humor. I love the mechanics. It's a super accessible game to get into, and it really opens your mind up to possibilities. That's why it's on the core collection. Why is Uncharted 2 Among Thieves in the core collection? Uncharted 1 was a nice proof of concept for what Naughty Dog, the Crash Bandicoot, Jack and Daxter people, could do with making an Indiana Jones-esque adventure, but with its own characters, its own flair, its own theme, like its own ideas that it tries to work with, but still off that, I'm a treasure hunter type vibe. Uncharted 2 is that taking that proof of concept and pushing it to where it's an actual fine, like wonderful thing. This came out in 2011, I believe, or no, 2009. Came out in 2009. Like it's just spectacular. It's still an incredibly written game, even though it's 16 years old at this point. It is still a fun game to play. Like I'm talking about the Nathan Drake collection version because that's the only version I've ever experienced. But that version holds up. Like still, they did update some stuff. I know that, but like from a design standpoint, it still holds up. Fun puzzles, fun dialogue, fun set pieces. Like in Tibet, like that whole sequence with the tank. It's Uncharted 2.
Uncharted 2.
It's Uncharted 2.
Could you give a little explanation why Uncharted 2 would win over Portal 2?
Yes, because Portal 2 I have a lot of respect for, but I have personal enjoyment and personal stakes and personal, like, more memories of Uncharted 2. It's just a personal thing.
Very good.
So, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard versus Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Very interesting. Both are returns to forms for long-standing franchises that have had dips and valleys, especially in the past, like ever since their big breakaway in the early 2000s. Their last entry for Resident Evil 7, for the Resident Evil series, it was Resident Evil 4 in the early 2000s. For Final Fantasy 7, a lot of people have a lot of love, but the last like mainline one that was big cultural impact was Final Fantasy 10. To the best of my knowledge and my research. But Final Fantasy VII was always the one that people adored. So remaking it was such a big deal and such a big project to undertake. But I'm not going to talk about that one first. We're going to talk about Resident Evil 7 first. Resident Evil 7 is a wonderful horror game that is a return to form for the series. It harkens back to the time of Resident Evil 1, just in more of its puzzle-based mechanics, in more of its and design layout. It's got the Baker family, the family that's in this Louisiana swamp nightmare, is so captivating and engaging as villains. They are the reason why the game is great. Ethan Winters is like a terrible, terrible protagonist. I do not like him, but that's because he's a nothing burger, and so is his wife Mia. They're a bit nothing burger, but like they're regular Joes who are allowed to be nothing burgers, especially in comparison to the ever charismatic Baker family. I think the tuning in this game is very, very fun and very, very fair. It's got really two great escape room, one in the base game, one in the DLC, that I'm a big fan of. I think, like, it's a great time. I'm a huge fan of it. I know I said I wasn't going to do this, but that being said, the winner of this is going to be Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'll tell you why.
Oh, please do explain.
Final Fantasy VII Remake is in the core collection because Final Fantasy VII's characters are some of my favorite characters of all time. Like, I think of them as like my close personal friends: Barret, Aerith, Cloud, Tifa, Red 13. They're just all amazing, and you get to know them so well over the course of the whole series, but you get to be introduced to them here, and it's just so great. Big negative about Final Fantasy VII Remake, as an objective observer with no skin in the game, is a pacing issue. It's a pacing issue caused by the fact that they took the first opening 4 hours of the 60-hour PS1 JRPG. They took the opening 4 hours and said, we're going to turn that into a 27-hour game experience on its own. So just the entire Midgar section, the opening section, is the entirety of Final Fantasy VII Remake. I can understand why they did that, because there's not really an even place to stop it if they didn't. And they choose to do some really cool meta things with the story, but ultimately it still suffers from a major pacing issue around halfway through, starting halfway through all the way up until almost the end. But here's the thing, is that I know that a person is capable of enjoying this without playing the original, but I found that my time with this game completely changed after playing the original. Now I understand why Cloud and why Tifa and why Aerith and Barret and Red 13 and Sephiroth and the world of Final Fantasy VII, why it's so engaging and so endearing and so beloved by so many people. And to be able to experience like the coolest version of this world, like the world that has the best fidelity, the world that has the best combat. By the way, this is my favorite combat system in any game, maybe ever. I think the active ATB combat system, where it's a mixture of like RPG elements of matching materia for elemental damage and elemental weaknesses, matched with the real, like, I get to do stuff. It's not like I'm just standing there waiting for my turn. I get to actively engage. The fact that there's like 5 character kits is crazy. The fact that they add even more in Rebirth is even crazier. But like, the fact that like playing as Barret is different from playing as Tifa, which is different than playing as Aerith, which is different from playing as Cloud. They all have all this stuff that is fully realized. It's not just like in Pokemon, you use a move and then your character goes like, huh, huh, and then the move goes off. Like, this is like a fully realized like animation to it all. There's like flair put into this. Not Flareon, the Pokemon. Like,
That was a good one.
Thank you. And I adore the world of Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think it's such a good time because it takes all those moments of poor pacing and it adds character moments to that. It deepens the connection that these characters have to each other. In the original, Tifa and Aerith didn't really talk, but now they have a combined, between that and Rebirth, 2 games worth of interactions together, and you can feel that they're real friends, you know what I mean? So like that is just, I don't know, that's special. Like it's a special game, and for that reason, it beats Resident Evil 7 Biohazard.
All right, next up.
Next up, Halo Infinite versus the Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. A game that was supposed to have an infinite amount of DLCs versus a DLC to a game that people thought would initially never come out. Why is Halo Infinite in the core collection? By the way, I'm not necessarily starting with the loser every single time. That was just very coincidental for Biohazard, Resident Evil 7, so that's the reason why that happened. But like, don't expect that necessarily walking forward. I want to keep the suspense up. Halo Infinite versus Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. Why is Halo Infinite a part of the core collection? Halo Infinite is here because 343, from a gameplay perspective, finally got it. And they added a grapple hook on top of that. Like, from a gameplay perspective, this might be the most even, fun Halo PvE sandbox. It feels the most balanced. It feels the most, like, to me, one of the most enjoyable from just like a passive perspective. Because this is an open world game. It's an open zone game. Yes, the zone is just one zone and it all looks very much the same, but it's still an enjoyable place to be in. I think that Halo Infinite, like, the armor looks sick. The new Tana is like a really endearing character. I love new Tana. The pilot was nothing, and the story kind of sucks. But just from a gameplay perspective, the game is phenomenal. It feels so good to play. That's why it's here. So, I don't. Does that satisfy you, Drew?
That does in a way. So, because you mentioned the characters, are you able to give anything on the exact, like, a synopsis of the plot without revealing any spoilers? Like, who are we fighting? Why are we fighting them?
We're fighting.
Is there anything about the story that intrigued you?
We're fighting a boring bad guy for no reason, to ultimately give as a retcon to the two middling to bad Halo stories that 343 has made thus far. And that's kind of it. It's just kind of like, okay, we did that. We're going to sweep it over under the rug or whatever, and we're just going to try to continue on with a story that's never going to be complete. So it's fine. Character-wise, 343 really excels. I think they excel at the relationship between John Halo and New Tana. But other than that, like, plot-wise, nothing happens in this game. A dude makes a threat to Master Chief and then dies because of it. And then a guy who we're never going to see again, who was part of a game but not part of a game. And we saw in the beginning cutscene that they don't explain who he is, but you have to read 4 books and play a game to understand who he is in the context of this main AAA game. Just shows up at the end just to be like, oh, you'll see me in the DLC that'll never come out. So, not great, I'd say.
But that should just go to show how fun the sandboxing gameplay is.
The sandbox is phenomenal. I think the sandbox is so much fun.
How do we stack against Elden Ring
Shadow of the Erdtree? So this requires a brief explanation as to why Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is here and not just Elden Ring. I don't love Elden Ring. Elden Ring is like my 4th favorite FromSoft game. A lot of people love Elden Ring. I recognize Elden Ring's absolute gigantic quality, but I just can't abide by the fact that it just doesn't vibe with me in the way that it vibes with so many other people. I think it's too wide. I think there's too many options. I like my few good melee options, and that's all I really care about in these games. I like experiencing the bosses, the world, the lore, some levels of exploration, but really just it's good, consistent dungeon encounters or environmental pacing is very important to me. So giving me so much open zone free space and giving me segmented place. Like, for example, one of my favorite parts in base Elden Ring is Volcano Manor. I think that is so much fun. I think that is a very well-tuned encounter space for where you're supposed to be at that point in the game. And I think it's so much fun to make your way through that level. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is just like, what if there was a smaller, more refined Elden Ring type scenario? And the DLC is so big that it works as its own little mini game. Like, if they had a spin-off game called Shadow of the Erdtree, this would be that. Like, it's not... To say that it's DLC... It's DLC for a game so big that it has to be so big that it can almost be considered its own game, which is why it's here. But Shadow of the Erdtree has wonderful encounters, wonderful boss encounters. Mesmer is one of my favorite bosses in any From Software game ever. Such a fun dueling fight. I love it. So many great places to experience. Like, Elden Ring had this dream-like quality to it, and Shadow of the Erdtree is a dream of the dream. I love that heightened reality that Shadow of the Erdtree has in comparison to Elden Ring. It's like if you had to make a map of what you remember about what Elden Ring looked like. That's what Shadow of the Erdtree actually looks like, and it's spectacular. Much like, it's condensed. It's, you know what I mean? So, like, that's why it's not perfect. I think that there are some difficulties tuning things in the final boss I don't really like. But neither here nor there. That doesn't diminish from what is a wonderful experience.
All right.
So that's why it's in the core
collection. I think that's a pretty good... Yeah.
It's Shadow of the Erdtree. It's Shadow of the Erdtree. There are far less things wrong with Shadow of the Erdtree than Halo Infinite, and a good From Software experience is very hard to beat on any given day. So yeah.
All right. Winner's Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree.
Gris versus Alien Isolation. This is very interesting. Both are about coping with the loss of a loved one. Except one has cool French platforming with beautiful watercolor art, and one has a killer xenomorph that likes to chase you around everywhere. Gris is in the core collection because it's the most artful experience I've ever had with a game. It is... So, watercolor art, cool movement mechanics that grow as new environmental mechanics get introduced. So, like, for example, you have a ground pound. That ground pound used to, in phase 1 of the game, you break open, like, you turn into a big block, you break open breakable spaces. But all of a sudden, bam, now it's being used to, like, combat, like, wind, because you're more stable. Like, I haven't played the game in, like, 3 years, so I'm just going based off my own memory of playing it once 3 years ago. But, like, the mechanics build on the game systems as the game goes on. And it also is a game not based on difficulty per se, but it's more like a puzzle platformer. And I think that's super cool. I think that initial experience is really fun. And it's just beautiful. Like, you feel like you're playing art when you're playing this game. So that's why it's in the core collection. Why is Alien Isolation in the core collection? It's because, like, it's Alien Isolation. You know what I mean? Like, it's so sick. I played this game. I have the Platinum Trophy for this game on PlayStation. And it is consistently scary. I love how depowered you feel against all of the different enemies that you come across, which is you mainly, like, running away from the xenomorph or fighting the automatons. I love how congruent everything feels with the 1970s aesthetic of the original Alien. Everything feels truly lived in a way that doesn't feel dated, in a way that feels frankly timeless. and it's so cool. It really does feel like this slots in nicely in between Alien and Aliens, and I really like that. This is another example of like, does a shorter game with some interesting things. It's been a minute since I played either of these. I had a great, I think, nostalgia and overall like the amount of times I played it and its overall personal impact. It might go to Alien Isolation. I haven't decided yet. I think for sheer excellence and sheer artistry, it might go to Gris. Haven't decided yet. It just depends on what I'm weighing it as now. Joel, what have you heard that you think might tip it in the balance one way or the other?
So, Alien Isolation does sound like quite the intriguing game. However, you know how I feel personally about it. I've seen gameplay of Gris. I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. The mechanics sound really good. In terms of against Alien Isolation, it's really a hard call because I feel like both games fit very well into a different niche in a way.
This is the thing about a video game bracket, is that you have to make weird calls like this, you know what I mean? So, especially because I purposely ordered it in this way to make these weird calls.
Just yeah,
I think
just for me, I think I would give it to Gris, but I don't. It's really either way.
I'm giving it to Alien Isolation.
Alien Isolation. All right.
Uncharted 2 versus Final Fantasy VII Remake. This is so difficult. Because here's the thing: is that I have multiple Uncharted's on this game that I like for different reasons, but Uncharted 2 is not my favorite Uncharted game, and I have multiple Final Fantasy VII's on this game, Remake and Rebirth, and I don't know if Remake is my favorite of the two. I think it isn't. So neither of these are my favorite amongst their respective franchises and, whatever. Which one do I think does a better job at being it?
And that's really the question.
It's Remake.
Final Fantasy VII Remake. All right.
Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree. I feel like I don't need... Just combine what I said about Uncharted 2 and combine what I said about Remake, and I just think that based on what I just said about both of them, I think that Remake just stands taller in my mind. It's made a stronger impression on me as a person, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
Shadow of the Erdtree versus Alien Isolation is tough. So in terms of problems, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree has a little bit of a difficulty tuning problem that I wish was combated by more than just searching the entire map for Scadutree fragments and revered spirit ashes. I think some of its bosses aren't the best, especially the final boss. I'm just not a fan of it, really, from like be it a thematic perspective or just a combat perspective. Here's the thing: is I think Alien Isolation is a very good game, and I can't actively think of any problems I had when I was playing it. I can't even remember the last time I played it, but like, it was so long ago. But still, it just feels like everything I wanted out of a game like that, and I'm so glad we're getting a sequel, by the way. After all these years, I think it's Alien Isolation for this.
I think, like you were saying, the gameplay is a little bit more seamless, and you don't have to jump through all the hoops of making sure it's a good experience like you do with Shadow of the Erdtree.
Yeah. And I just generally I have a consistently good time with Alien Isolation. Or a consistently bad time because it's a horror game, you know what I mean? So.
Yes.
Final Fantasy VII Remake. I will say this right now. Sonic Mania is winning this. There's some that I just know in my bones immediately off the rip.
You feel it in your jellies.
I feel it in the jellies.
As they say.
As they say in the Formula Stead. That being said, Mario Kart Wii still deserves to be in the core collection. So why is it in the core collection? Mario Kart Wii's in the core collection because this is the first Mario Kart that I ever played. I think it's so genius from like a design perspective how they utilize the Wiimote to operate this game. Like using motion controls for this game, absolutely pure work of art. It's crazy how well it works. I think that it's got so many iconic tracks: Coconut Mall, Mushroom Gorge. Like, need I say more? One of the most difficult and iconic rainbow roads of all time. I love this game. I have so many hours in this game. Being able to unlock Rosalina if you have saved data from Mario Galaxy is an insane creative thing to do, and it's only Nintendo would do that. Okay, we're back. I forgot what I said, but basically Mario Kart's sick. I love Mario Kart, but Sonic Mania is the winner because Sonic Mania is like the best Sonic game ever made. It's so sick. It's so fun. It's like they took the best of everything. They took the best parts of all the old Sonic games, and then they made new stuff that's somehow like kind of better sometimes. It's like so many wonderful touches of backgrounds, foregrounds, little animations when Sonic's about to fall off a platform and he's like, whoa. It's like, I'm not saying those aren't necessarily in the old Sonic games. It's been a long time since I played anything Sonic related, but like, just talking about this game, wonderful. So much good momentum, so much good speed. I like the fact that it's 2 acts per zone instead of 3 acts. I think that really tightens up the experience. Really, really fun game. So that's it. Like, but it's just like Sonic Mania is such a solid package, and Mario Kart Wii is not even the best Mario Kart. It's the Mario Kart that makes the core collection because it's the Mario Kart that I've played the most of. But you know, it's Mario Kart Wii. It's got some problems to it. So yeah. So Sonic Mania. I don't know what to do here. So okay. So
there's some heavy hitters.
Either way, one of my favorite things is being destroyed today. Sekiro is in the core collection because it's one of the finest games ever made. Sekiro is here in the core collection because it is one of the finest. Like, I adore Sekiro. I adore the boss fights. I adore the parry mechanic. I adore the speed. I adore the environmental design. I adore the story. I love the boss fights though. I love the boss fights. Genichiro is my favorite starter learning boss in any From Software game ever. He teaches you how to play Sekiro, because if you don't beat him, you're not getting any further. That's kind of true for every boss. Like, if you're not beat them, you're not getting any further. But like, he is the true like Act 1 test, the culmination of everything you learned so far, and he raises the bar. It's so sick. Here's the thing. I don't really have any complaints about Sekiro. Like,
I can agree with that.
I just don't. Like, yeah. So, like, Destiny 2 The Final Shape. This is very specifically the Final Shape expansion, not Destiny 2 as a whole. Destiny 2 as a whole is what I'm going to be talking about with Destiny 2 Forsaken. Destiny 2 The Final Shape, just the campaign and what the campaign offers, what the expansion itself offers, is what I'm going to be talking about here. The Final Shape is quite possibly the best story, probably the best story, I'd say, that Bungie has ever made. They took a lot of necessary risks with it. They took big swings. Bring Cayde 6 back. I almost said Cait Sith. Cayde 6 back is a big swing. Choosing to, like, having to contend with the incredibly unfortunate death of Lance Reddick is a big swing. Trying to tie up 10 years of your live service game that started out with almost no story is a big swing. Choosing to make The Witness have big anime eyes is a big swing. Choosing to almost ruin your company with the Lightfall expansion is a big swing. Choosing to lay off so many of your devs is a big swing. I wasn't going to go there. This isn't about the devs, right? Well, this is about the devs. This isn't. I'm not trying to talk about the devs' loss right now. I'm not trying to talk about the reaction of where Bungie's at right now. Destiny 2: The Final Shape is a triumph for any Destiny fan. Prismatic subclass is the coolest thing Bungie's ever made. Cooler than, frankly, like, it's built upon the bedrock of one of the coolest things they ever did, which is subclass 2.0. Light subclasses 2.0 or 3.0 or whatever they say, where you take the aspects and fragments of the subclasses that you spent the past few years building out, and you just mash them all together in a way that feels a little bit balanced, at least. And it's just so much fun because it's just the ultimate level of customizability. What else is there? All the weapons are amazing. The Call is like the coolest weapon ever. It's like the closest to the Magnum that we'll ever get, even if we already have the Magnum in the game. It's... I don't know what to say. It's wonderful. It's... Destiny 2: The Final Shape is special. I don't know what I want to pick right now. Like, I truly don't.
This is a really hard one.
This is a really hard one. Wiping ye bum with a hook for a hand is really hard. This be impossible.
I don't even know if I have any input here, simply because each one is such a big undertaking that excels at everything it tries to do. And both have, like, incredible acclaim from all sides.
The Final Shape is... The Final Shape had a bit of a slow start, I'll say. The first, like, 3 missions I wasn't a big fan of, but then you get to Zabala's house and you're just like, this is the best thing ever. Like, and it just gets better from there.
Are there any bosses in Sekiro that you're not particularly fond of?
Not any notable ones where I'm like, I hate this boss. The Demon of Hatred I still have not beaten. But everything about... I think the Genichiro is one of the finest bosses ever. The final boss is amazing. Jarrell has not beaten the game yet, so I cannot spoil what...
Yeah, I'm on my way, but it's been a minute.
The monkey fight alone is one of the greatest experiences that one can have.
The Ghost Ape
in a
was
game.
such a legendary fight.
I have a Sekiro poster right there. That's a Sekiro poster next to the Alan Wake 2 poster. You know what I mean? And that's a Forsaken poster right over there.
So what do we do?
It's the Final Shape. Is it?
There's really no wrong answer here.
There is.
Both of them are incredible.
The Final Shape is, like, as an experience, it's special. The finale is special as a Destiny fan. This was my second favorite game of 2024, right below Animal Well. Sekiro is my favorite game of 2019. It's the Final Shape. It's a personal thing.
Okay.
Whew. Okay. Now for the fun one. Persona 5 Royal and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and only one comes out alive.
Only one comes out alive.
Because basically they have the opposite. They have the same problems, but they have the opposite problems. So let me lay it out for us.
Lay it out for us.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is in the core collection because it is the whole Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy is likely to be in the core collection because they're all one unit that's, carries on from game to game. So it's kind of here riding the coattails of why I love Remake, or it would be if it was not also a spectacular game. I like Rebirth more than I like Remake. I think Rebirth is a much stronger entry. I think Rebirth is phenomenal from a character perspective, from a combat perspective, from a side quest perspective, from an open world perspective for the first half. The first half of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is my favorite game of 2024, even if I were to include my Balatro playthrough in 2025 into that. It still does not beat Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The first half. Then you get to Gongaga, and then Gongaga, and then the game takes a complete nosedive because Gongaga is a terribly designed space to have an open world section in. It's like Vanaheim in God of War Ragnarok. It's just like vines, twists and turns, multiple layers on top of this. Like, it's very difficult to traverse, and when traversal is like the passive thing you do in this type of open world game, you're just annoyed all the time. And then after that, I kind of just beeline through the story because I was just very tired by Gongaga. But this game is special, man. Like, it is so good. Even though I don't love the ending, I don't love where the ending left off. It feels like it leaves off on a less interesting note than Remake left off in. It still is just, in totality, it's so special. So that's why it's here. Persona 5 Royal is here because I would not have gotten through the pandemic. Partially the reason why I was able to get through the pandemic was because of Persona 5 Royal. I played this game over the course of November and December, mainly just December of 2020, and it was just a month where I just dedicated my life to the Phantom Thieves, to the Phantom Thief of Hearts, Thieves of Hearts. Persona 5 Royal is also special. It's a game with a killer soundtrack, with killer characters, with killer arcs, with killer set pieces, with just such a jazzy vibe. And it's a game that made me withstand turn-based combats, which is something that I hate. I can't stand turn-based combat. I really don't like it. But man, is it so good. Like, it's crazy. In terms of an overall package, Persona 5 Royal absolutely has Final Fantasy VII Rebirth beat. But, like, here's the thing, is I love the cast and characters in Persona 5 Royal. But the Rebirth characters feel like family. In the weirdest way possible. Like, I don't mean that weirdly. I mean, like, just, it's such a strange experience being like, I got my three-man squad. Like, I got Tifa, Barret, and Cloud. And those are my god. Those are my boys right there. Tifa's my girl. Like, that's crazy how that works. I love the music in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as well. Like, when it opens up into the first section, I just started tearing up because it was like such a beautiful experience that I was having with this game. Like, I don't know, it communicated such a lovely atmosphere that I was just like, I can't take this. This is crazy. I don't know what would happen in a remake, in a replay through. I mean, when I replay Rebirth eventually, how I'll feel about Gongaga on. But, like, in terms of all the story stuff that I experienced, I still really loved it. True. I'm not gonna,
both are fantastic
here's
games.
the thing. They're both fantastic games. I know that this is my list, and I know that obviously you're like, Grant, what are you talking about? This is no-brainer. It's clearly Persona 5 Royal. But, like, it is Persona 5 Royal. It is the game that has an infinitely replayable soundtrack. It's a game that has such iconic characters like Yusuke and Ryuji and An and Makoto it's created endless amounts of memes and gifs and gifs and
Like the peanut butter.
moments and gentrification. But it's also a game where you can date your teacher and then also like and it just like doesn't bat an eye. Like it was like light work, no reaction.
Light work, no reaction.
And it's also a game that just has turn-based combat, and I'm just not going to enjoy turn-based combat ever, I don't think. But then you have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and it's like there's a giant pacing problem that I felt with the game where I'm just like, I feel like I hate this right now because of Gongaga. But the first half, but that's simply because it's one zone. Like, I'm not going to completely tank my thoughts on Persona 5 Royal because I hate the Okumura boss fight.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
On one sand, so you have equal is music and characters and themes. Side quests goes to Rebirth. Big impact. Big finale, like the ability to have a finale impact goes to Royal because Rebirth has to be that middle chapter that doesn't get to have impact the same way. When Mother was there, bow wow wow, bow wow wow.
The epitome of soundtracks, both of them.
Queen's Blood soundtrack. Queen's Blood. Like, the breadth and depth at which you can engage with Rebirth is insane. I think I gotta go with Rebirth, man. Like,
Okay.
yeah, I'm going with Rebirth.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I still love Persona 5 Royal, though. Don't get me wrong.
Of course, of course, of course.
This is Uncharted 4, but we're going to talk about why Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker deserves to be here. It's a delightful puzzle game. It is so much fun. It's this little box, and you just rotate the box, and you move Captain Toad around the box, and you like unlock puzzles, and you unlock little things to go around, and he doesn't really have any combat, so you have to like avoid enemies, and it's so much fun, and it's nice, you know? Like, it's just nice. That's why it's here. So, that. Uncharted 4 is one of the best written games of all time. It's Naughty Dog made The Last of Us and said, "Oh, dang, we can really cook." And then they made Uncharted 4, which is like The Last of Us-ification of Uncharted. And it feels mature, but it still feels like, I don't know, it feels like they laid it all on the line with Uncharted, and it's great. It doesn't just feel like another chapter in the story. It feels like a real culmination to everything, the point of Uncharted. And it's great. Its combat's amazing. Its set pieces are wonderful and spectacular. It's great. I got no complaints. Final shape.
All right.
Sonic Mania is great, but it's the final shape. Rebirth versus Uncharted 4. There's more characters to love in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And Uncharted 4 isn't even my favorite Uncharted. But Uncharted 4 is still spectacular. Uncharted 4 is a little bit long, I will admit. It definitely feels like it just keeps going. Not that there's any part that I'd necessarily take out, but it just does feel like the way that they structured this. It just feels like that finale that just won't end. It's Rebirth. It's Rebirth.
Rebirth?
Yeah.
All right.
I love Uncharted. Like, here's the thing. All of these are my favorite games. I'm purposely
That's why they're all here.
pitting all of them against each other. Ooh, this is interesting. Drell, should I take into account... Here's the thing. Like, the first half of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is pulling a lot of the weight of how far Rebirth has gotten so far.
Right.
If Rebirth goes, like, I think either of these are going to beat Final Fantasy VII Remake. So I'm basically determining the winner right now.
Fair enough.
The Final Shape has a boring opening half, a really interesting story perspective second half. It brings in a new enemy faction finally. It brings in a new subclass that is basically the subclass that we want. It has an excellent finale. It has a raid that I'm never going to play. It has really cool exotics that I'm too lazy to get. It has really cool world activities. And it wasn't enough to stop those people from losing their jobs, which sucks. Rebirth has a strong first half and a second half that my experience was diminished by the worst designed open world section ever. Me, Gongaga.
Gongaga.
But I love the combat in Rebirth. I love Queen's Blood. I love the characters. I love all the moments you get. I love the amount of downtime that you have because it's just focused on characters. I love all the side quests that you have. I love the depth and of how many different activities there are for you to explore. I love the music. I love that it feels like a different game from Final Fantasy VII Remake. I love that they really embraced what made that opening sections of the big middle section of the original Final Fantasy VII. They synthesized it into a modern way to make it into, like, modern audiences could enjoy it in the same way that audiences on the PS1 or PS2 could enjoy it. PS1, I believe. Because here's the thing, I could have played the raid and hated it. You know what I mean? But I didn't.
Yeah, but you didn't. But you can't skip Gongaga.
But I can't skip Gongaga. Destiny has some of the finest shooting mechanics of any shooter whatsoever that continues on with the Final Shape. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is my favorite combat in any RPG or any game, any action game, probably ever. I like it more than God of War. It's got the perfect synthesis of, like, RPG elements but real-time action combat, and it's spectacular. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth feels like a triumph and a celebration of everything that Final Fantasy VII was, even more so than Remake. I like it more than Remake, and that's even considering my problems with Rebirth that I had on my first playthrough. The Final Shape is the best thing that Bungie could make given the situation that they were in. With no Activision, no Vicarious Visions, no High Moon Studios, their backs against the wall, a couple months extra to turn it around, to add all the stuff that they added in. But they did it.
And I'd even go as far to say they knocked it out of the park.
They rose to the occasion.
Was there ever a point in Rebirth where it felt like you could not progress through the story?
What do you mean?
I mean, like how in the Final Shape it's like meant to be seamless, but as you and I both know, with a lot of... You
still have to do public events and lost sectors and a strike.
Right. How often between each game do you have to take a break from the experience of the game?
You can beeline the story, for sure. I think it's Rebirth. I think I'm going to go with my gut on the fact that
Rebirth?
The first half of that game is my favorite game of 2024. And I'm trusting my gut when I say that that is strong enough to keep it all the way. And it's Rebirth. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. This was a lot of fun, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.
Bye, everybody.